What's up, guys? Welcome to Newswave Week in Review. This is our Saturday show where I like to go back, take a look at your comments throughout the week and see what you guys had to say and respond to them. It's a lot of fun because a lot of times you guys will bring up different points and everything, and it's pretty cool to see. And if you missed a day of Newswave, this is kind of a good way to get caught up. If you missed a day, we kind of go over the bigger points throughout the week from gaming. So today, guys, let's get started. Monday, we talked about a leaked screenshot that was supposedly from the unreleased Pokemon Switch game. The image is blurry, but shows a player model riding a Lapras across water. Gamers have continued to speculate about this image, and some are worried that Pokemon on the Switch may not be that different from the 3DS versions. I Am Peter Cole says, honestly, I would be disappointed in that Pokemon game, but I will still play it on Switch regardless. Yeah, that's pretty much the case anyway, either way. No matter what happens, this Pokemon game that comes out, as long as it is a mainline Pokemon game, everyone's going to buy it anyway. It's the first time Pokemon has actually been on a console as the actual Pokemon games, not like a spin-off. Pokemon XD, Pokemon Coliseum Stadium, all those are all games that are not part of the mainline Pokemon series. So the fact that they are finally moving it to home consoles is a big enough event for them to, they could just put whatever. They could seriously just move the 3DS version over in higher resolution and maybe better assets and everything, and people would buy it. It doesn't matter. People would still buy it. So that's kind of the reason I was a little surprised at the mention that they're going to try to reinvent the entire Pokemon setup for the Switch. It seemed weird. They have an obvious 15 to 16 million seller that happens every time. Every time Pokemon comes out, it sells well. It always sells north of 10 million, and it's pretty much a lock for a great seller, and it's always a lock to move systems. 3DSs, whenever a new Pokemon game comes out, 3DSs actually become kind of hard to find. It happens every time almost because everyone's buying 3DSs to get the new Pokemon game. Maybe they traded theirs in, maybe they lost it, maybe they just want a new one for this new Pokemon game. That happens. So when it does come out on the Switch, which it might be this year, a lot of us are thinking it is a 2018 game, but when it does come out, the Switches are going to sell really well, they're going to move, and it was very weird to me to hear that they looked at Mario, the rumor saying that they looked at Mario Odyssey, looked at Zelda, saw the great reception that those series got for kind of breaking from the norm, and they wanted a part of that. They wanted to be a part of that. So it's very weird to hear that because they could just honestly move the 3DS versions over. Everyone will still buy it. It's Pokemon. Sleepy Esper says, I think people are being overly hyped for a Pokemon game that we haven't heard or seen other than leaks. I think people really need to temper their expectations. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, to be honest. I mean, like I said, this is the first time Pokemon has moved to a home console as the mainline series. It is an event that will continue to be hyped, and honestly, Pokemon, the Pokemon Company, Game Freak, Nintendo, they're not really helping the cause because they have been extremely tight-lipped on this. Nothing. I would like to see a Direct ahead of E3 because then the build-up would then continue till June. I'd like to see a Direct sometime in April before the end of this month. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would like to see that just to get information out in front of E3, because if not, and they show everything at E3, it's going to be a lot of information to absorb all around this Pokemon game. I would hope that will be part of an extended Treehouse session if it is coming out this year, and they show a lot of stuff about it at like their presser, their Direct that they do at E3. But I think this Pokemon game warrants its own full Direct. You know, a 20-minute Direct could be full of this Pokemon game. It's pretty obvious. But no, it's going to continue to be hyped up, especially if they remain quiet, and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. As long as they remain quiet, fans will continue to hype up the first console launch for a mainline Pokemon game. That's just the way it is. We all kind of have this thought that it's going to look amazing on the Switch because, of course, the Switch is significantly more powerful than the 3DS. Performance-wise, it'll probably perform better, but it's also still up to Game Freak and everybody to see what they're going to do to it, and if they're going to kind of go the status quo with it and maybe just move it over, or maybe they'll try something new like we've kind of heard. We'll see, though, but it's going to continue to be hyped. There's no stopping it. Tuesday, we talked about a new iteration of Nintendo's middleware engine called Bezel. This is the software designed for third parties to use to help develop games for the Nintendo Switch. The middleware from Nintendo started as far back as the original Wii under the name NintendoWare. Retro Tech Select says, Nintendo should have shared some middleware portable resolution secrets with Monolith on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Ooh, that one hurt. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, while it is a good game, I like it as an RPG fan. Yeah, that handheld resolution is pretty rough. I think it's just because that game is so big for the Switch, especially when it downclocks and is in portable mode. The resolution does drop, the performance drops. It's pretty clear, everyone knows this. But I don't know if they're ever going to really patch it to fix it. It's been out for a little bit now. We've had a couple patches. Nothing seems to mention anything about fixing up the resolution or anything in handheld mode. I actually had no problem with it in docked mode. It was good enough, I think, for people to play. But I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a game we go back to whenever that inevitable Switch revision happens, where it's more powerful, where they drop an X2 in, or who knows. That's going to be the game we go back to because it is a dynamically scaling resolution, kind of like how when Halo 5 was moved to the Xbox One X, the roof was 1080p and it would drop on the Xbox One, Xbox One S to keep the 60 frames, but with the X, it stayed at 1080p pretty much the entire time, 60 frames, great. So when that Switch revision comes out, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is going to be the game that most people go back to and check out, especially to see how much better this new Switch revision is. That's inevitable, it'll happen, but that's going to be the game I think we use, especially in portable mode, to see how much more powerful the next system is. I think it's more of they need more power for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in portable mode to look better. I don't know if patches are going to significantly help it, so that's kind of where we are with that. NessX64 says, late. I know what this is about. For some reason, YouTube is doing some weird thing with this glitch where when you publish a video, it doesn't show up in your videos section like 10 or 15 minutes until 10 or 15 minutes later. But Newswave is always 8 a.m. Eastern. If it's not showing up right away for you, I think you either have to have notifications on, or if you follow on Twitter, it gets posted on Twitter 8 a.m. Eastern time as well. A lot of people in the comments say they might not get notified, but because they saw it on Twitter, they just clicked on it there and went to the video. Otherwise, it seems to just take like 10, 15 minutes for it to show up. It's very weird. I'm not really sure what that glitch is about, but it's YouTube. What can you do, right? Wednesday, we took a look at Spider-Man finally getting a release date announced that day for September 7th. Rocket League also received an update on Switch, giving players the option of different graphical modes. Adamski22 says, I hope Sony has new stuff at E3. When they announced all their exclusives a few years ago, it looked fantastic, but the truth is they're only just coming out now this year. Some still don't even have much more info. Their E3 show has been pretty much the same 2 years in a row. They not need, but to keep the PS4 going whilst they introduce the PS5, something big this year. Yeah, Sony's E3 shows tend to be pretty much the same because a lot of their games span multiple E3s. I mean, I'm not saying it's them because it's not, but like Square showing Final Fantasy VII Remake a while ago, years ago, and it's still nowhere near being out is bad. But then they also show Spider-Man 3 years in a row, because I'm sure it will also at least make an appearance this E3. At least it has a release date, it has a ton of information ahead of E3. But you're going to see Days Gone, right? You're going to see Last of Us 2. And I would like to see them announce some new stuff, put some new stuff out there. Like last year when they did Monster Hunter, while that was a multi-plat, it obviously sold better on the PlayStation, and that was really cool to see. That was really neat to see that kind of pop up. You're going to see probably more PlayStation VR stuff too, because I do think they're going to continue pushing VR into the PS5 generation. But they need new stuff. I think they'll have new stuff as well. God of War have been out, and that's done. You're not going to see that at E3 again. But the basics, you'll see Ghost of Tsushima, of course. You'll see Days Gone because they got pushed to 2019 now, so it won't be out this year. And then Last of Us 2, we like to think is coming out next year. I don't think it's coming out this year. Last of Us 2 is probably a 2019 game. That actually might be one of the last games on the PS4, and then maybe it gets one of those little remasters to the PS5. But we'll see some new stuff from them. They have a lot of internal studios, and they're very good working with third parties, so I think you will see quite a few new PlayStation games here. But remember, they have to get it out in time because we assume the PS5 at the earliest is coming late 2019, probably 2020 at the latest. So we're getting to that point where it's like we're between generations almost now, you know, we're getting close. So it's gonna be fun to see what they have for us at E3 and if they can get most of it out in 2019. Thursday went over a trademark by Nintendo that seems to point to a new Pokémon Rumble game coming to the Switch, and Spider-Man received a ton of details, including gameplay and special edition information. Gilberto says, please, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon for Switch. Now, I mentioned Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in that video because I do think we're gonna start seeing Nintendo's internal studios that work like separately. Maybe one works on 3DS, the other one works on Switch or Wii U at the time. You're gonna see them start to come together and specifically work on the Switch. I don't think Nintendo's going to announce another 3DS or another sole handheld that's not a part of the Switch family. People have talked about a Switch Mini that doesn't come with like separate Joy-Con or anything. That's probably something better that Nintendo could do. And then they wouldn't have a divided internal studios for different systems. That would be really fun because then you would see all these spin-offs like a Mystery Dungeon or anything that would normally be developed for the 3DS instead. It'll all be on the Switch. And I think that's what a lot of people would like to see at this point because a lot of people didn't like Luigi's Mansion going to the 3DS. And I think now, or at least in the next year or two, especially as we get into 2019, the 3DS is pretty much getting phased out, which is tough because massive install base. However, I think Nintendo wants to wait for the Switch's install base to go to a certain point where they can kind of let go of the 3DS, let third-party developers, maybe who want to localize stuff like an Atlas or something, maybe they want to localize games over, maybe there are some smaller third parties that want to develop for it, and that's fine. But Nintendo, I think their focus will become more and more Switch-oriented, especially in the next year or two. So you will see things like a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Why not? You'll see a lot of different spin-offs for games. You'll see probably even like WarioWare come over eventually. You know, you'll see the Mario Party will come over, Mario Maker. So it's going to be fun when that happens, because I do think the Switch's lineup will really bolster with releases. I mean, think about it. The 3DS and the Wii U, if all those releases were together for like the Wii U, there wouldn't have been a lot of droughts. You know, that's something that I think the Switch will actually benefit from, is all of these internal studios coming together and just focusing on that system. Good Vibes says, I still have a bad feeling about Spider-Man. I'm gonna wait until all the reviews are out. Now, it's not a bad idea to wait for reviews, because sometimes things will pop up that are like, oh, side missions are repetitive. You know, be ready for that. Open world is emptier than it should be. Those are all things that I'm still curious about with Spider-Man. However, the quality of that game is looking really, really good. Like the little details, like how he actually swings around. You know, the New York City looks great. Like him swinging around New York looks awesome. He has all these little cool animations. And when you start seeing those little details really have a lot of care put into them, you kind of start to figure, okay, this game, it's been in development for a while now. Insomniac is, at least, they're good, right? They know what they're doing with these kind of games and open worlds. They did a really good job with Infamous Second Son. I like that game. So I think this Spider-Man is gonna be very good. It was developed specifically for one system in mind, which again will help with performance. It seems to be looking pretty good on the PS4 Pro, even though it won't be obviously native 4K. It'll be checkerboarded, but it's looking good, and I think this is going to be great. I'm hoping, my last favorite Spider-Man game was Spider-Man 2, and I played that on the original Xbox a lot, so I'm hoping, really hoping that this one kind of goes back to that feeling where I'm like, all right, this is awesome. I can jet around. But the real question is going to be, how's the story, right? Voice acting, these are all things I want to take a look at and see if it's interesting enough, or if it is going to be one of those things where we just kind of go from quest to quest essentially, and then we have like side quests and you level up occasionally and stuff. I'm hoping there is a really fun original story that they keep teasing. It'd just be really cool to see that. Finally, on Friday, we took a look at the worst kept secret over the past few months, the Spyro Reignited Collection. Activision made the announcement after nearly everything leaked that morning, revealing it is not a timed exclusive and will be releasing in September on both the PS4 and Xbox One systems. Nintendo UK made an odd blunder, listing the Spyro collection on their online store, making us all wonder if Nintendo is saving their version to be announced later. Musiko says, do you think developers are still trying to catch up to the Switch, or are they just not prioritizing the Switch for whatever reason? Spyro should have been ready for release with the other two consoles. So I do think Spyro is going to the Switch. I don't know if Nintendo has their own announcement set up or it's going to come later, but I get what you're saying, because we are getting to a point now where the Switch has been out for over a year. And I do think a lot of development cycles that were in progress before the Switch dev kits became available, I think a lot of those are starting to finish up and new development cycles are starting up. The big example is Level 5. They came out and said, we're going to focus now, all of our mainline games will also be on the Switch. So any of the main games they do will be there. And I think that's because after Ni no Kuni 2, I think most of their development cycles finished up for games that were prior to the dev kits that they got for the Switch, or maybe they just had enough time to get any of their current projects before then kind of on there now. So they're pretty much confident across the board, and they, of course, are making Japanese-oriented games, right? Like Japanese RPGs, things like that, that will sell well on the Switch because it's going to have a massive install base in Japan at the rate that it's selling. It'll probably catch the PS4, to be completely honest with you guys, it'll probably catch the PS4 by this time next year in Japan. And at that rate, it'll get all the JRPGs. It'll get all the Japanese-centric games. So if you like JRPGs, you might as well pick up a Switch soon, because it's going to get all of them. It honestly could even get Ni no Kuni 2 for all we know, since the original Ni no Kuni was moved to the DS at one point. So who knows really there. But yeah, I think we're getting to a point there. Some of the exceptions I think right now are things like Activision and Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is a 3-year dev cycle, so maybe next year's Call of Duty will find its way onto the Switch, but anything that takes a year or two to develop is probably going to start showing up to the Switch now. But Spyro is a weird one. I don't know when they started that. I don't know if it was a knee-jerk reaction to how great Crash was received, But I do think that will come to the Switch eventually. If it's not coming the same day, Nintendo maybe wants to reveal it at E3, then it's going to come probably early next year, maybe summer next year. We'll see though, but I don't be surprised. Spyro is probably coming to the Switch. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for Newswave Week in Review. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys. Really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is the Pokemon on the Switch, maybe you want to give your take on really how things have kind of evolved over the week. People are still looking at that image. They're trying to figure it out. Some people are saying it's real. Some people are saying it's a Citra emulator, which, yeah, I can see that. It does kind of look like that. But apparently that image was blurred on purpose. It was cropped on purpose. There's a lot of stuff apparently in that image that would give things away that they didn't want to share. So it's very, very weird situation. These leaks are only adding to the massive hype train that is heading towards E3. So I hope they do put out a direct beforehand just to kind of spell these rumors, just show us what we're actually getting, right? With Pokemon on the Switch. But we'll see about that. Also, let me know what you think about Spider-Man, Spyro. Guys, definitely join us tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Spawncast. Gonna have a lot of fun tonight. Have a couple guests. And, we're gonna have a fun little podcast. So make sure you stop by, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.